Bentley has waved a cheery goodbye to a legend. Not a person, not a car, not a factory, but an engine. The L Series V8. The L Series V8 first found a home in the 1959 Bentley S2 and went on to power Bentleys like the S3, the Azure, the Brooklands, the Arnage, and most recently, Bentley's four-door luxury flagship, the Mulsanne. But now that V8 and the flagship Mulsanne have gone, leaving a void. And Bentley has plugged that gap with this, the Flying Spur. Now granted, the Flying Spur isn't a direct replacement for the Mulsanne. The Flying Spur was launched when the Mulsanne was still being built. But now the Mulsanne has gone, the Flying Spur is the ultimate luxury modern Bentley saloon. A point proven when you start diving into the details. The rear side panel is the largest single piece of aluminium used in the automotive industry. The metal heated to 500 degrees centigrade before being cut by lasers. The rotating central display is made up of 153 individual parts and took 3 years to design too. It takes 141 people to create the interior, with 350 individual pieces of leather and 1.8 miles worth of thread. The Bentley logo on the headrest alone has more than 5,000 stitches. On top of that, the double glazing means you can cruise along at 70 miles an hour and whisper to whoever's sitting in the back. And when it comes to making this ultimate luxury Bentley saloon drive, Bentley's engineers have thrown everything they can at it. The front brakes are the joint largest fitted to any car in the world, the discs measuring 420mm in diameter up front with 10 piston calipers and 380mm discs at the rear with 4 piston calipers. The anti-roll bars are electronically controlled, giving you more stability when you need it and flexibility when you don't. There are aluminium double wishbones at the front with an aluminium multi-link setup at the rear, with 3-chamber air springs at each corner and continuous damping control. The Flying Spur is rear-wheel drive most of the time too, the all-wheel drive system kicking in when you really start to lose traction. There are also 4 drive modes, which tweak every aspect of the car's dynamics, and there's all-wheel steering to give you a better turning circle at low speeds and greater stability at high speeds. And then there's the engine. See, rather than the big old V8 that you got in the Mulsanne, the Flying Spur has an engine that we've been familiar with since the Continental GT turned up in 2003. It's a 6-litre twin-turbo W12. The engine produces 635 PS at 6,000 RPM and 900 Newton meters of torque from 1,350 RPM to 4,500 RPM. That means that even though this car weighs 2,437 kilos, it is quite a heavy machine, it'll do 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3.8 seconds. And the top speed is 207 miles an hour. The way the Flying Spur accelerates is actually quite spooky. The telltale signs that you're going fast, that you're accelerating that quickly, are normally engine noise, tyre noise, road noise, and wind noise. But in this, you just don't have those things in the same way. The double glazing filters out so much of the wind noise. You've got so much sound deadening. The engine, it's got a nice roar, but it's still very quiet for a car that accelerates so quickly. Now, what about the systems underneath? The electric anti-roll bars, the air suspension, the four-wheel drive, the four-wheel steer. Well, first of all, the four-wheel steer really does make a difference. As you can see, this is not a small car. It's 5.3 meters long and with the mirrors popped out 2.2 meters wide. That is longer than an extended wheelbase Range Rover. But at low speeds, it just turns so much tighter than you could imagine it would. The electric anti-roll bars, the air suspension, they're both fantastic. With each of the 4 drive modes, Sport, B for Bentley, Comfort and Custom, the level of suspension travel changes, the support you get across the car changes. But considering it weighs 2.4 tonnes, it does things that it really shouldn't. Again, like the way it accelerates, it corners and handles in ways you just wouldn't expect for something this big and this imposing. The gearbox is a ZF 8-speed dual clutch, and you get exactly what you'd want from a dual clutch. The gear changes are incredibly fast, and if you want to change up and down with the paddles behind the wheel, the response is there, it's super snappy. So second gear at the moment, third, fourth, fifth, it just does it instantaneously. The only real issue with the double clutch is that compared to a traditional torque converter automatic at low speed, it just isn't quite as smooth. It isn't a massive issue, but I notice it particularly when you go from reverse to drive and when you want to apply a little bit of throttle. That's when it gets a little bit jumpy in a way that with a traditional torque converter you wouldn't get that kind of jumpiness. It would be smoother. Are there any letdowns? Well, there are a few. The Bs on the car's flanks are made from plastic and simply don't belong. The rear end is a bit bland as well. Everything in the interior is beautifully made, but the carpet, as silly as it might sound, isn't very thick. And something like adaptive cruise control, a handy weapon to have in your continent crossing arsenal, is part of a pack, the Touring specification, and that costs £6,290. All things considered though, this is one mighty machine. What Bentley has created is really quite special. It isn't the most comfortable luxury saloon in the world, but it does exactly what a Bentley should. It balances comfort and speed and performance. It's big, but my word can it fly.